So welcome, couldn't be said any better. On behalf of Brian and Nineveh Hooper, welcome to the memorial service of Brian Henry Hooper. Enjoy the time that we have together. And a special welcome to Carmen, Brian's mother. We loved him, we're so proud of him. Welcome to his father, Brian Sr., to his brothers, Guy, David and Alan, to his sisters, Diane and Lee, and to his son, Matthew, and daughters, Nina and Lana. Welcome to the two little girls, his angels, Ava and Charlize. Daddy loves you. Welcome to his mum and dad, Afra and Miriam Haddad. And welcome to the whole Hooper and Haddad clans. Welcome also to Brian's work colleagues at ME Bank and the staff of Mary McKillop, who provided amazing and exemplary support to Brian, Nineveh and their girls. Welcome and thank you to the staff of Peter McCallum, who gave the best medical care and support to Brian and Nineveh. Finally, welcome to the music community and those who have worked closely with Brian and supported him in his many fine achievements as a recording and performing artist, with unquestionable musical instincts and undeniably brilliant and unique musical abilities. We are here today, welcomed by Brian and welcomed by Nineveh at their request at this place to honour Brian's wishes. So we have a few people that are going to speak about Brian, and I would like Guy to step forward, and Guy Hooper, his brother, to step forward, and also the other eulogists, if you could be ready to step forward as well. Thank you. Guy.
There were 6 Hooper kids, 2 girls and 4 boys. Brian was number 5. He was born on November 11th, Remembrance Day. He was named after Dad, and he shared Dad's gift of connecting with people. Even though he could be a cheeky shit, you couldn't help but like him, just like Dad. He had a smile that made it pretty hard to be angry at him for too long. Being a large, unruly mob, we were all assigned responsibilities when we went out on a family outing. David, the oldest, looked after Brian. Diane looked after Susan, and I looked after Alan. David and Brian were very similar in character. They were both skinny, wiry types and hard. Alan and I were similar too, really clever but a little bit doughy. The girls were perfect angels. We grew up with music all around us. It was a part of our daily life. Dad played lots of instruments and had a large record collection. Mum sang beautifully. It was a bit like living in an Irish or Welsh family but without the cute accent. The first 4 kids were classically trained, but Brian made his own musical journey. First with a second-hand drum kit, then onto guitar, and later he settled into groove on bass. As a young kid, Brian loved his football and backyard cricket. We'd all play and we'd smash the windows regularly with a cricket ball. I think it was Diane and Sue's room. Yep. He was forever kicking the ball around, so Mum would regularly walk him over to Kings Park to play kick-to-kick. Another time it was his birthday, he might have been about 12, and he's feeling a bit flat, so Mum asked the next door neighbour if he wouldn't mind playing kick-to-kick with Brian. It helps when you're a kid and your next door neighbour is your favourite team's ruck rover. So that was Peter Ellis, 6'8". He was a natural athlete, he had endless energy and determination, and he was forever pushing the boundaries. Does that sound familiar? He rode bicycles, skateboards and dirt bikes, and had crashes on all of them. One time he rode a friend's brand new dragster for the first time. He rode a friend's brand new dragster and rode it down a steep laneway. Now Brian had never ridden one of these before. It had those newfangled handbrakes, he used pedal brakes. So he's hurtling down the street, furiously backpedaling, hits the fence, cuts his chin, and splits his scrotum on the gear change lever. Not to mention his friend's new bike was destroyed. Then there was a time he got towed down by a bike down a hill on a skateboard, so he could go faster. Then he got the speed wobbles, came off and grazed himself badly. He once made us lay on the veranda so he could jump over us. He jumped off the skateboard over us onto another skateboard. I don't remember any of us losing any skin or getting any bruises, but I can't be sure. Another time he jumped off the top step at our Hawthorn home on his pogo stick, about 6 foot down. He managed to land it, but the laws of physics meant the pogo stick had an equal and opposite reaction, and he managed to get another scar on his chin. Mum used to make pea and ham soup in a pressure cooker, one of those old ones, and the lid actually blew off and put a hole in our kitchen ceiling once. Anyway, one night she was out, which almost never happened, and Dad was away on business, and the older kids were in charge of the younger ones, and we were serving pea and ham soup. Brian somehow managed to walk into a bowl of it as it was being put on the table and got very badly burnt. The soup caused his 1970s style nylon shirt to melt to his neck. So David, the oldest one, picked him up, David would have been 16, wrapped him in a blanket, put him over his shoulder and ran 2 kilometres to the hospital. He was in a sterile room for weeks while they did grafts on his neck, but he didn't complain at all. And we didn't know it then, but this is just a glimpse of the toughness and the strength that he would exhibit later in life. Brian and Alan, the 2 youngest, had a special bond, but they still fought, as brothers do. So much so that Mum and Dad bought them boxing gloves to save their knuckles. They would wag school and hang out at Davo's Deli. They'd smoke behind the gym or in the Oval, or play crown and anchors and dice game with their mate Andy. When he was 16, he snuck Alan into the Victoria Hotel, our local watering hole, but their luck was out. Alan went to the bar, and the lady behind the bar was his phys ed teacher. He said, "You're not 18, you're in my phys ed class." "Oh, well, what do you have?" So he ordered a jug of beer, but then Mum's mum, Zoe, happened to be in the pub too, and she saw him. She said, "Right, get out." We had one of those, "oh shit, we're in trouble" moments, but they survived. As you know, Brian played hard. One night in Perth, at the Silver Slipper, the bouncer threw Brian out. Brian was indignant, to say the least, and he felt the best way to communicate his outrage was to go and get in his escort van and drive it through the front door of the nightclub, which he did. He quickly drove away and parked it round the corner, and then some good Samaritan lady said, "Here, get in my car," and she drove him off, so that they never found him. That's a little example of the fire and the passion that he had in his belly. When they were very young, Alan and Brian used to go to the op shops with Mum and get second-hand records. Elvis, Beach Boys, the Trogs. They used to sing some of them for Mum. I have a memory of them singing horror movie, actually, Skyhooks. It wasn't much later that those same beloved records became frisbees out the backyard, and then they'd smash them all. Brian had a rebellious nature and a fiercely independent streak. He started his musical journey with punk, because it seemed to be a perfect way to express his feelings through music, and was lucky he found his people. He picked up a guitar and a bass and taught himself to play. His enthusiasm was infectious, and Alan followed him into the punk scene, where he still lives, I think, that's right. That's it. In 1985, he went into business with Alan in their own second-hand furniture shop, B&A Traders. B for Ryan, A for Alan. Toss the coin to see whose name would go first. So he got lots of practice at cryptic crosswords and salesmanship. They would often haggle with the customers about prices that they'd buy and sell, but it was Brian that would run after the customers down the street and try and close the sale. Much later, Brian started his own business, Copyright, that was bulk copying CDs for corporate clients in the days when it was hard to do that. He was a natural salesman and completely fearless, so he was pretty good at generating orders, and he would work non-stop for days to meet a deadline. Our brother David worked with him in the business for a time, and between jobs they would solve cryptic crosswords and enjoy a glass or 2 or 3 or 4 of wine. The Hooper clan always enjoyed a drink, but Brian and Dad were the 2 that possibly enjoyed it the most. I could never keep up with Brian. I remember, sort of, lots of nights when we would stay up talking, listening to music, usually his, and drinking Jamesons or whatever was left in the house. It was always me that bailed out first. And he usually showed up in the morning, looking none the worse for wear, and looking damn sharp too. He was a good-looking bugger. Brian came from a big, loving family, and he made his own big, loving family of beautiful, extraordinary children, Matthew, Lena, Lana, Ava and Charlize, and they meant the world to him. He also had another huge extended family, the thousands of people who connected with through his music. Nineveh has been a rock for him. She gave him a place to be secure and still create the music that was so essential to his sense of identity. We're so very grateful to her for the way she helped him battle his illness and kept us along every step of the way. Brian taught us a lot about how to live and how to love. His music says it all.
My name's Dave Noonan, and I've been a friend of Brian for around about 38 years, I think, since high school. And in starting off, I want to talk about what it was like in Perth at the time I met Brian, because, you know, I think a lot of us felt that we were in the most isolated city in the world, and that's because we were stuck out on the west coast of a huge continent, the desert, and conformity was everything in that town. You know, you didn't hear different music, you didn't see different things on TV. There was an expected way you had to live in Perth, and I remember at school one day I saw this kid who was a year above me, and a lot of us were listening to punk rock or new wave or whatever you want to call it at the time, but there was probably only one person at the school that looked the part, and that was Brian. And he already had that sense of swag, of style, of beauty, and of course an edge of wildness and menace, and none of those things ever left Brian all of his life. So I remember being behind the gym smoking cigarettes and playing Crown and Anchor with Al, with Andy McPherson, who's not with us anymore. Andy was probably, I think, the first drummer that Brian played with. Sorry, Tony, there was another drummer before you. They started off a band with, I think, Glenn Tobin, who's one of Brian's great old mates from Perth Modern School. Brian, I later found out, had wanted to do the music scholarship at Perth Modern School, but he didn't do well in the exam, and he was really, you know, so disappointed by that, I think, when I talked about him in retrospect. But a lot of people who did, I mean, I don't know how he failed it, I passed it. And for a musician, I make a good union official. But you see, that exam really means nothing now when you look at what Brian's done, because he passed the biggest exam of all, which is to be a musician, to be successful, to write his stuff, to have people listen to him. You know, when people die, as he's died, sometimes, and Al and I were talking about this the other day, and Tony and I have talked about it, you read the eulogies and you read the things people say on Facebook, and you'd think from a lot of it that Brian was an angel. Well, if you think that, you didn't know him. When we started to go out and see bands, and we were well underage, and it wasn't just the Subiaco Hotel, it was Hernando's Hideaway, it was the Governor Broome, it was Adrian's, and all of these places, and it was wild. Your first task was to plan how you were going to get there without getting beaten up by the local rockers and street gangs and rev heads. Your second task was to survive in there without getting beaten up by one of the lunatics that used to populate the gigs, because it wasn't a sort of arty scene in Perth, it was pretty hardcore. But you see, Brian, I used to get a bit nervous about this sometimes. Brian never looked nervous. He revelled in it. And he used to sort of live by that thing, I think, get your retaliation in first. And, you know, Brian was a wild bugger. And the Silver Slipper story is true, and I can tell many others, but I won't because of time, but maybe at the wake we will. I knew him for so long. We shared a house in a shambolic house, which I think Tony had a part of, and other people that were here in Richmond, Kevin Passmore and I. Brian lived in that house, I think around the time the Surrealists were getting going, and Kim came to see us and other people, and you could see this guy who'd been playing with bands like the Modern Wimps and the Utensils and different bands he played with earlier, starting to get together with Kim, who was older than us and a bit of a legend, and make, you know, really great music. But Brian, all through it, kept his sense of humour. He had no time for fools. He could be very sharp with people. But the great qualities he had are the qualities that people have spoken about. If you ever wanted a friend more loyal than Brian Hooper, you could never find a friend more loyal than Brian Hooper. A better friend. His courage. You know, he breaks his back. I drove out to see him with Tony. I was in tears and Tony said, "Stop crying, we're not going to let him see us cry." And we went out there. And from that, he fought the pain, the disability, his courage, didn't complain about it. People said he'd never walk again, and we can never forget that moment when he got up on the stage and threw his crutches down, and he confronted that head on. And through the last few months, from the time he rang me up and casually told me that he had cancer, his courage, his strength, his endurance, his fortitude, as he fought that terrible fight and rode that boat down, I've never seen anything like it. And Nineveh was there the whole way with him. He loved her so much, and her courage and her strength and the way that she fought it with him is the ultimate tribute of love that a partner could give to another. To Brian's family, to his mum, to his brothers and sisters, I've known them all over the years for so long. To Nina, to Matthew, to Lana, to Charlize and Ava, you can be proud of your father. There was no one like him. I've never met anyone like Brian Hooper. I've never had a better friend than Brian Hooper. You can be proud of your father because he was a person in this life who stamped his life, his personality, his vision and his love on the world. Brian, I'm lost for words now, which doesn't happen often, but you'll never be forgotten. You live on through your family, you live on through your work, through your music, and today, later in the day, we're going to continue to see you off in the way you would have loved with a couple of Jamisons. Thanks very much.
Well, Brian loves to tell the story of how we met. You've been at this other times. Wanted drummer for punk band. Must be absolute moron. Well, he says it must be absolute moron. I remember it was just must be moron. But for today, it was absolute moron. I can stand here all day talking about Brian. He was my friend. My brother, and my colleague. And this world, someone said it's got a big lion-shaped hole in it now, and it has. I love the guy, like many of us. And I'll miss him. See you later.
When Brian left us last week, I'd known him for 38 years. Looking at all that time, all the things we did together as friends and music colleagues, I think the thing that most characterised our relationship was that in our peculiar way we were each other's teacher, whether the subject be what was rock and roll, or punk, what was not, how to do the right thing, how to do the wrong thing, how to have grace, how to be disgraceful, how to attempt to have style, how to be a decent person, how not to, the right way to drink red wine and spill it on one's cream-coloured suit, how many shows you go without a dry cleaner with said suit, what the damn chords for the song were, how not to care what the songs were, what the chords were. Each of us could show each other a thing or two. Brian's about 5 years younger than me. We were from different waves of the Perth punk scene. Naturally, I thought I could show the young upstart how it was done, and naturally, he thought he could prove he knew better to the old fart. This was the dynamic of a lifelong relationship. In 1987, after both of us having crossed paths numerous times in the UK and over in the eastern states, we found ourselves back in Perth. I asked him if he wanted to be in the band I was starting. He was up for it. He was, I soon learned, always up for anything. He was the guy who could do a gig, party all night long, stick on a suit the next morning and go to work selling software conversion. He did this for years. I told Brian that I wanted to have this anarchist approach to music, but it was him that truly showed me by example how to do that. With him and Tony Powell, we made 4 albums, literally on the fly, went on to get wasted, miss international flights, do runners from London cabs, get lost in the Bavarian snow out of our heads, plenty of stuff to confess outside of the church. I showed him my ideas, and he always had a different take on them. If my idea was highfalutin, he'd tell it back to me all prosaic. If mine was nuts and bolts, he'd have seen wild romance. He had his own ideas to contribute, and I for sure took them elsewhere. Songs like Melt and I Fell were such songs. He added wild cards to my hand. Add the joker Tony Powell to the game and we were bound to win. That was a surrealist Brian. I think we won the game. Mightn't look like it. And there was the big Suburban. We rocked side by side for a couple of years until it got too much for me. Brian continued. Eventually he left the Surrealists. He found other gigs. From afar I watched and listened as he fulfilled a very familiar but different role with Roland S. Howard. He and his unmistakable thunderous groove provided the perfect foil to Roland. At some point we became estranged for a decade. Well, I don't actually think it was that long, but he said it was. In this time he had a dreadful accident and fell off a building. He was meant to be a paraplegic. Brian was never one for rules. He beat the prognosis. I thought of him as a side player, like Keith Richards or Johnny Thunder's mine. But he broke that rule and released 3 albums of his own, and he's got 2 more in the pipeline. We reconnected largely due to Brian's wife, Ninevah. I'm eternally grateful to her for that. I always thought there was something poetic about Brian marrying a social worker. In the last few years, we jammed together on the recording of a soundtrack. We still had it. Did big suburban reunions. We still had it. Had dinners around our place to rehearse with me for a version of the Surrealists. We played at my partner Maxine's certificate. We still had it. Had dinners around his place with Nineveh and his little movie star daughter, Charlize and Ava. We had lunches with his family, including his daughter, Nina and Lana. We went to some funerals. We did non-rock and roll things. I went and played some guitar one night on an album we'd been working on. It was loads of fun. I never had a chance to hear it. It's still in the pipeline. I listened to another album we recorded at Andrew McGee's place in the Gambia with Steve Boyle. This album, to me, seemed to be a defining statement for Brian, and I told him so more than once. As far as I'm concerned, he's recorded a masterpiece that truly walked the line and bared his soul. If you listen to it though, it very sadly has proved to be a harbinger. Last November, I heard about his diagnosis. In the ensuing 5 months, he was truly inspirational in how he dealt with the situation he found himself in. I watched him face his future with hope, humility, graciousness, courage, and finally acceptance. Those last months were a lesson for me that I'll never forget. Brian was the teacher, which brings me to where I started. I'm a better person for having known Brian, but from my own selfish point of view, all I can think is I've lost the person with whom I can share all those specific memories, which is why my heart goes out to Nineveh, Brian's family, and to all of you who knew him. Thank you.
I might fall over, so just bear with me. I want to talk to you all about love. Brian's enormous capacity to love, generosity of the heart and spirit, and his kindnesses, which, any of us know about, whether everybody else knew about. Be here for hours with rock and roll stories, but I wanted to say this because I've been in the same boat. He's given me strength and courage to last longer than I've been given. If anyone could inspire you to do that, it would be Brian. Sorry about the feedback. A good family and the Hoopers and two little girls. Charlize and Ava. Brian has given me the strength to be courageous in my friendships, in my kindnesses, as he would have wanted you to all feel as well. Thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Lana. This is my sister Nina, and this is my brother Matthew. I think it's relevant that we're in a church today. Dad told me that he found God in his last few days. He looked at me one day when we were in the room alone together, and he said, "Lana, don't be afraid, but God is in the room." And I'm like, uh-oh, where is he? And he's like, he's behind you. It's Iggy Pop. I know, it's one of my existential life crises. Right there. He wasn't a conventional dad. He taught us a lot of practical life lessons, like not to drink and drive. I learned that one too many times in the back of a breathalyzer van on the side of the road. Some of my favourite memories were actually with Dad at Liz Reed's house. Those were the orange days where we'd go to the Orange Cafe in the morning and he'd get his latte with 2 and his double shot of whiskey. And he'd give me and I $5 each, and that poor corner shop guy, we raided his shop of lollies every day. These are the days where he also came about with spontaneous pets. One day when we were walking home from Orange, he pulled a kitten out of his pocket. And we were like, where did you get that from? So it must be someone in this room. I still don't even know where he got that cat from. But we wrote a song about it. It was pretty funny. He also got us rabbits. 2 females, we thought, until they started mating. And then we had 30 rabbits in our backyard. It was pretty funny. He taught all of us a lot about life and how to live it and how not to live it and how to make the most of it. So that's what I put out of this. Thank you all for being here.
I guess they wouldn't be Brian's orders if they didn't say Brian. Nin, you want to come in, or you okay in there, or what? With ground control to major. Yeah, you're right? Okay. Thank you so much to Dave, to Spencer, to Kim, to Lana, and to Guy. Beautiful words. And beautiful thoughts. Nineveh, I'm speaking these words on your behalf. This is a letter to Brian. This is a letter Nineveh thought she'd never have to write. It's one filled with grief, sorrow, pain, and heartache, but also filled with pride and joy. Joy for the amazing 12 years she and Brian had together, and pride for the man he was. It's a letter the twins, Ava and Charlize, can read someday and feel every ounce of love that Nineveh had for their dad. To my darling Brian, you are the love of my life, my once in a lifetime. You are my best friend and father of our beautiful girls. You gave me a life of adventure, travel, and love. You could make me laugh so hard my cheeks hurt. I'll never forget slow dancing with you in the kitchen, or the way you would hold my hand. You challenged me, you encouraged me, held me accountable, and pushed me to being a better human being every day. Your battle with lung cancer over the last 6 months was another reminder of how resilient, determined, and courageous you are. I recall you telling me the day of your diagnosis that you are the best man for the job. You were keen to take this challenge on and counted on me being there holding your hand the whole way. Your grace and attitude towards cancer gave you the strength to continue through right up to your benefit on the 13th. Watching you hold our newborn baby twin girls and weep over them will forever be etched in my heart. I never thought I'd feel more pride than when I saw you as a daddy to Ava and Charlize. Babe, you're an amazing father and loved our girls. I promise to raise our girls with your thoughts in mind, to think about all the decisions you would make on important matters affecting them. I promise to teach them to kick a football, play basketball, paint, have a love for music and love for outdoors. I might even encourage them to barrack for the West Coast Eagles too. I promise to renovate our caravan and fulfill your dream of taking the girls on adventures. I promise to tell them every day that their daddy loved them to the moon. And I will honour your wishes for the release of your record. What would I know? You are my love, my hero, and I am honoured that we found each other and shared a beautiful wedding ceremony in this very church. You are my rock, my soulmate, and I am so proud of you. We achieved so much together as we were always a team, and unconditional as you often described it. I will honour and celebrate you with every fibre of my being for the rest of my life. So save a seat in heaven for me and meet me at the gates when it's time for me to join you again. All my love, forever and always, Nineveh. Thank you. A few more tributes. Here's one from Adelita. Brian, I'm going to miss you, mate. We had some great rock and roll times together, and it was always a privilege to have been counted as your friend. You're the baddest, assest, cruelest motherfucker there was. Absolve me. Your bass playing was incredible, incomparable, compelling, and world class. No one does it like you, and no one will ever again. Watching you at the Prince of Wales was truly awe-inspiring. I'm so proud of you and your fighting spirit. I know your legacy and music will live on strong. My love and condolences to Nin, the girls, and all of Brian's loved ones. Thanks, Adelita. Joel Silvershire says, the man was a beautiful life force. His dying attitude makes me want to live and suck life up in all its deliciousness. I've never seen anyone with that strength before, facing the known. He refused so many times, death and disability that he was told were imminent for fucking years. You won't walk, you will die now. Sorry, Joel, just editing a little. I know you mean it. He just refused them. He wouldn't say he made dying fun, but his last months have changed my fatalistic outlook so much. Such power, I cry in admiration as I thumb this pathetic shit. Still can't actually speak though. Thanks, Joel. Charlie Owen. Brian was the most determined and driven guy, a great man at overcoming obstacles. I'll miss the great pleasure and privilege to be on stage alongside him all over the world in the Beasts. A great friend. Ken Gormley says, farewell Hoops, my old friend, my comrade, my bassman counterpart. You're a sweet, gorgeous man. Thank you for the music, for your inspiring strength, and brother, thank you for this gift of community. Bringing us together, united we stand. Rock and roll can never die. Immense love and respect from the Cruel Sea family. You live on in our memories and in our hearts. And a message from Nick Cave. Brian was the most beautiful guy, full of kind and fierce charisma. An incredible force on stage with a swagger that seemed purpose-built for rock and roll. Brian was a true Australian legend. And finally, final message from Warren Ellis, another great friend of Brian. Brian was a beautiful man inside and out, a loving father, husband, and the best kind of friend. His defiance and lust for life will always be a benchmark for me. I will miss that chest and that beautiful grin. forever in awe of his ability to navigate dangerous waters with no trace of self-pity. And no one could drop a bomb like Hoops when he strapped on at base. Love and strength to his loved ones, Warren. We now would like to show a few images from Brian's life. And you'll see in the program a couple of tracks from Brian's forthcoming record.
Feelings I don't wanna that wasn't me. So what do we do with all of that? And so just, if you haven't worked it out, it was my privilege, 2010, to celebrate Nineveh and Brian's wedding here. And I can't remember clearly my reaction when that ancient rolls turned up. And out came this frightfully gentlemanly gentleman, cane and all. Not quite like the bloke that with Nineveh sat in that house and we talked about how will this wedding go. But the same. And then some years later, it was my privilege, they asked me, and we celebrated the baptism of the two girls here, that font. And then Michael caught up with me and said, Brian had declared that he wanted his funeral here, and if they could find that bloke that had done the other things, ask him if he's prepared to do this bit too, hence my presence. So I don't know how many of you would have a clue about what I'm up to, but you might have suspected something by now. But I suspect a lot of you wouldn't have a clue. I think actually the kids' comment was so appropriate. We're going to come back to that. There's a few things we need to do. First is to pray a formal prayer. I always start this part of a funeral with a forgiveness prayer because I reckon we all need it. The locals know if they dare start mine without one for me, don't dare to stand up and shout. Say, no one can do this, but I'm going to shout. Because Lord Jesus, you came to share our life in every way, even into death. Lord, have mercy. And you went through death to life to bring each of us through death to life. Christ, have mercy. And you pray for our forgiveness. You pray we forgive one another. Lord, have mercy. And may Almighty God have mercy on us. Forgive us our sins, bring us to everlasting life. And we pray, Father, as we gather here, the death of Brian, comfort us with your love, strengthen us in our faith that he's with you. Help us to hear and understand your good news, the scripture we'll heard read in a moment, so that we find light in darkness, faith in doubts, and comfort for one another and from one another, and we ask this through Christ our Lord. You know, Nina's going to read a passage from St. Paul to us. If she'd come forward, please.
This is a reading of Paul's letter to the Colossians. Clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, and humility. Bear with one another. Forgive each other, just as the Lord has forgiven you. So you also must forgive. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And be thankful within your heart. Sing to God.
And the other scripture passage will be read by Diane.
This is a reading of the Beatitudes from the Gospel of Matthew. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Love you, God.
So I hope you hear all the echoes. A couple I'll have to make a comment on in those two readings. One gospel, one from Paul. The sorts of things that so many people said, some of those were not necessarily wrong, but they were good. And the words they kept using, compassion, justice, peace, that sort of thing. It's like who stirred people up to use their talent and make the most of it. To work out that enormous question of how do we make a better world. And as people were talking about it, they were the things I kept hearing. And this is when we were talking with Michael and Nineveh about planning the service. They're the sorts of words we keep banging on about here. Yeah, when we stuff it all up, forgiveness. Anybody who needs a reminder of that only has to look a little bit at the news about the Banking Royal Commission. I think it's been, I hope you don't mind. I think it's been hilarious looking at all these people confessing their sins. Old Catholics here will understand that. If you don't know, I hope you guess. And they're all, these dreadful things are being said to them, and their face doesn't change. Yes. Yes, you would say yes. Yeah, that many times, yeah. And get up and walk out, nothing changes. And I thought, have they any sense of what they... I mean, this makes this bloke, I don't know if it strikes you like that, it makes this bloke look and sound so honest and real. Fair enough? This is a human life. That is not. This makes sense to even a poor old thing like me. That does not. That's why I think we have to celebrate this bloke and who and how he is. Not just to forget him. See, that's the sad bit. I don't think we've started to learn how important memory is. But to remember how things are, not how things we would like them to be. And I'm afraid that listening to that little girl screaming her head off, I thought, I'm glad someone's doing that. There's probably a few of you who think that's not a bad response. But weren't quite game to do it, but she was. It's impossible stuff, but it needs courage. And we kept hearing that. And it needs a sense of welcome and possibility. And I kept hearing that. And you are here, look at you all, embodying that. What we keep wanting here in this place is that you'll all go out from here and keep doing that and being that out there in that world. What needs that that world does. No, this is I have prejudices, I have to say. My grandparents were married in this church. It is a very beautiful building. But we heard a bit about beauty and joy, and there's been lots of that in this building, I can tell you. But we want it out there, not in here. We want it, it's sad to mention, but I don't think we can let it go past. We want it in the world in Syria, the background of the Haddad family. Not just something to be sort of sweet about. This is awful. This is happening in our name on our planet. No thanks. Thanks. We don't want to let this stuff go. Okay? Your job is to pick up what you can do. As you might guess, listening to the bard so beautifully played in this building, I wanted to grab those people and keep them here now, doing it every day. Oh, it's just wonderful. Yeah, it's not the only way. It's a way we won't forget. And it still enlivens us. What we want is to do the same with Brian's life. That's what our prayer will be, and you're going to pray. But that's the point of it. We'll then do a couple of formal Old Catholic bits. But because I did both the wedding and the baptism, he would know he's going to cough eventually.
We pray in thanks for all that Brian has been to us. We give thanks for his great love and care and the bonds he shared with everyone. Lord, hear us. Lord, hear our prayer. We pray for Brian's family and friends who feel the pain and sorrow of his loss. May they find hope and strength in their faith and indeed each other in Brian's memory. Lord, hear us.
Lord, hear
our prayer. We commend Brian Henry Hooper to the mercy and care of God. Welcome him on his next journey where there is no more pain, only love and peace and happiness forevermore. Lord, hear us.
Lord, hear our prayer. And we conclude with a few things. The first is we pray our baptismal prayer, our family prayer. And the next bit is it says, sign of peace, which I think we did at the wedding and we'll do again. So for this bit, I think you all ought to stand up. The Lord's Prayer, you can pray along in whatever language you're comfortable with, or if you don't know it, don't know it. I'll pray it without it, and we will join in that. The other is our comment on the planet. It's the thing that we do. We put our hand out to those who happen to be around us and wish them peace. It's very immediate. It's not in their hope, no. It's having to look at someone and say peace. It's what we think matters. And then we'll move into the final prayer. But we move as we pray, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And now we turn and extend the hand of peace. So we move to the final part. The body will be taken to the crematorium. That's not, I don't like, it's not Brian that will be taken to the crematorium. Brian lives there, here, there. And none of that is going to be taken away. But we have to take this body and finally put it back to the elements of which it's made. Two things are the faith of this place and mine, and you're invited to share. The first is nothing that has been done for him in love and hope by anyone ever is lost. Okay? God's jealous and nothing is lost. The other is that nothing that he has done for anyone else. Now, how many people are energised by his music, entertained? Oh, I know, would even dare to ask. No one knows. That's what I think God's job is, remembering all of that and making sure that nothing of that is lost either. Okay? That's why I want and hope. Because the last bit is that each person here goes from here determined to be in some way of the same. Not exact, please, no, awful. Lots of different ways of being human, please live them. That's what we mean by the prayers that we'll now pray. So, Father, we give Brian into your hands. We thank you for all the love you've given him, and pray that all those who've given it will know what they have given. We thank you for all that he's given to others, and pray that all who've shared in it will value what they've received. We use our two signs. One is the baptism of water, because it's about life and not loss. The other is the incense. You need my sense of humour, unfortunately, for that bit. Because the incense was the prerogative and preserve of only the best people. The high priests, the kings and the royals. And we picked it up and said it's the dignity of every human being in whom God is at work. So it's recognising the divine in Brian. That won't quite surprise him. I know a few people I've had a grin when it said, blessed the pure in heart. It's not about that. It's about being undivided in heart, pure in that best sense. Best for the undivided in heart, not all over the place, giving snaps back. Blessed are those people who are meek. That's not those who are trodden on and nothing happens. No, they're the people who can acknowledge where they belong, to this earth and this humanity. Okay? That's the incense and the baptismal water. So, yes, please. This is the last bit. There are 3 roses for Nineveh little girls, and there are irises by a friend who came all the way from Perth, not I hope with the irises. And so and Nineveh's got candles. Now everyone here is invited to take an iris and take a candle, take them home, want a family, to remember Brian and to ask his light to remain in your life. And so as we return his body to the elements, we pray eternal rest give to him, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine on him. May he rest in peace, and may all of us one day, through that journey of death, rest in peace. We'll now leave. You are invited. Now, Michael's going to do the next bit, but keep it in mind you're invited to take one. Okay?
Thanks, Barry.
Oh, thanks, Mike.
Could I call on Steve Boyle, Matthew Rowe, John, Mick, Alan and Tony to come forward, take their positions. And while it's happening, and as a final word, and by way of introduction to the final song, final track from Brian, Nineveh recently said, "You know that I wouldn't be who I am without Brian. He made me better." I think many of us would think and feel the same way. As Brian would often say, just be great. So as a hymn to Brian, please let your voices be heard in this final song. I know most of you will know it. We'll put the words up for you. Join in and give Brian the send-off he so richly deserves.